The restaurant had no sign outside. Nadia Ose expected that. Black door. 7:53 p.m. She walked in. She gave her name at the door. The woman behind the stand checked her book. Looked up. Checked again. I'm sorry. The smile was perfect. I don't seem to have anything under that name. John, Nadia said. The reservation is under John Miho. Another check. Slower. I'm afraid I still. Then check again. The maitre d' looked up. Something shifted in her expression. She checked again. The dining room hummed. Conversations were low. Glass against glass. Several tables had noticed the exchange. I'm so sorry, the maitre d' said. Final now. There's truly nothing here. Perhaps the booking was made at Nadia. The voice came from her left. A woman appeared at her elbow, Korean, early 30s, impeccably maintained, the kind of put together that had been a lifelong practice rather than an occasion. The smile she brought was warm. The eyes behind it were doing something else entirely. I think there may have been a mix-up. Giselle's voice was pitched precisely, loud enough for the nearest 3 tables, quiet enough to seem private. This restaurant has a very particular clientele. Very specific booking process. Perhaps the reservation was made at the wrong establishment? It happens. A small sympathetic tilt of the head. There are several lovely places nearby that might be more accessible. The dining room went still. Nadia turned to look at her. Slowly. I'm sorry. Her voice was even. Almost pleasant. Who are you? Giselle blinked. I'm just. Who are you? Nadia said again. Because you just inserted yourself into a conversation between me and the staff of this establishment. So, I'd like to know who you are and what specifically about me walking through that door told you I needed your help finding somewhere more. She let the words sit in the air between them, accessible. I was only trying to. I know what you were trying to do. Nadia held her gaze. I'd like you to say it properly. Out loud. In this room. What did you see when I walked in here that made you decide I was in the wrong place? No one pretended anymore. Giselle opened her mouth. Nothing clean came out. The composure she had walked in with 30 years of knowing how to present herself in exactly the right rooms met Nadia's directness and found, for the first time in recent memory, that it had nothing to stand on. The door opened. John Miho walked in. He scanned the room in a second. His eyes landed on Nadia. Moved to Giselle standing in front of her. Read the entire scene with the speed of someone who had all the relevant context already loaded. His expression hardened. Not anger. Something colder. He crossed the floor. No stops. No detours. He came to stand beside Nadia, not in front of her, not behind her, beside her, and looked at Giselle for a long moment with the expression that said everything before his mouth opened. Then he looked at the maitre d'. Who told you there was no reservation? The maitre d's eyes moved to Giselle. Just for a fraction of a second. Involuntary. Immediate. That fraction was the answer. Miho looked back at Giselle. The temperature in his voice when he spoke was the cold of a man who had made a decision and was simply stating it. Get out of my restaurant. Giselle's composure fractured. Just slightly. Just enough. Miho. Now, Giselle. She left. Her heels sharp against the floor. The dining room watched her go in the specific silence of people who had just witnessed something they would be describing for weeks. Miho turned to Nadia. Everything about him shifted. The cold closed. What replaced it was direct and warm and carried the particular fury of a man who had been looking forward to an evening and was furious at what had been done to the beginning of it. I'm sorry, he said, for what just happened in here. That will never happen again. Nadia looked at him. Then at the restaurant, the warm lighting, the full room, the staff who had straightened the moment he walked through the door. The particular atmosphere of a space that knew exactly who it belonged to. Then back at him. You own this place. Yes. She looked at the menu still in her hand, the one the maitre d' had tried to take, and pulled out the chair at the table that had been set for them all along. Sat down. Placed the menu on the table in front of her. Then we should probably order, she said. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Because the woman who just walked out? She wasn't done yet. And the woman who just sat down, you're about to find out exactly who she is. This story is just getting started. Subscribe if you're new. You won't want to miss what's coming. 3 months before the restaurant, Nadia Ose had been exactly where she always was at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning, at her desk on the 14th floor, the city still coming awake outside her window. The first coffee of the day growing cold beside a site report she was already 3 pages into. Ose and Partners had been built from nothing. Not from family money, not from inherited connections, not from anything except a business plan written at 28 on a kitchen table, a loan paid back in 18 months, and the specific combination of vision and refusal to stop that people called talent when they didn't want to say discipline. 6 years later, it occupied 2 floors she had chosen herself, not the most prestigious address, but the best bones, the best light, the kind of infrastructure that told her the first time she walked through it that serious work could be done there. She was still reading the report when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Ose. Mail. Direct. No preamble. My name is John Miho. I was referred to you by an associate. I have a project I'd like to discuss. She looked at her calendar. I'm available Thursday at 2. I'll be there. He was 5 minutes early. He presented the project the way she would come to understand. He presented everything, the full information on the table from the start. No management of her reaction, no strategic withholding. A mixed-use development on the eastern edge of the city. Significant scale. The kind of commission that would occupy her firm for 2 years and produce something she would be proud to put her name on. She asked 14 questions. He answered all of them. At the door, he paused. Turned back. Thursday evenings. Are you usually free? She looked at him for a moment, reading the question for what it actually was. That depends on the Thursday. This one. The specific pause of a woman who had been running her own life long enough to know the difference between a question she wanted to answer and one she didn't. Send me the details, she said. He sent them within the hour. John Miho had inherited an empire and then built another one beside it. The legitimate operations, hospitality, real estate, import networks across 6 countries ran with the precision of something refined over 2 generations. The restaurant was one of 17. Not the largest. His favorite. The one he had designed himself down to the lighting temperature and the distance between tables because he understood that the details of a space were not decorative, they were structural. He was 33. He ran his world from an office that didn't look like one. He was not a man who spoke often, but when he spoke, people listened because he had never given them a reason not to. His personal life had been, by design, uncomplicated. He was selective in the specific way of men who understood the value of their own attention and did not give it carelessly. He had not been looking for anything when Nadia Ose's portfolio crossed his desk and made him stop and look again. He paid attention. Giselle had known Miho since they were 7 years old. 30 years of overlapping families, shared events, the particular closeness of 2 Korean households in the same city who had grown up in the same rooms. She had been at his father's 60th birthday. He had been at her sister's wedding. Their mothers spoke every week without fail. She was the person his parents thought of when the conversation turned to the future. Not because it had ever been stated directly, these things rarely were, but because it had been implied in 100 small ways across 3 decades, and Giselle had built her understanding of her own life around those implications. She had watched other women come and go, had waited with the patience of someone who believed the timeline was already written. Then she heard about the architect. She sat with it for 4 days. Then she made a call to the restaurant. They ordered. The dining room settled around them. He apologized once more. She accepted it once and moved forward, not because it didn't matter, but because she was not a woman who lived in incidents when there was a perfectly good evening still ahead. They talked for 3 hours. She told him about the community center she had just completed, smaller than her firm usually took on, the one she was most proud of because of what it gave back to the space it occupied. He listened with the particular attention of someone actually processing rather than waiting for his turn. He told her why the restaurant had no sign. Not pretension, preference. He had never wanted to build things that needed to announce themselves. She looked at him when he said that. That's an architectural principle. Is it? The best buildings don't shout. They just stand. He looked at her across the table. Yes, he said. Exactly that. At her car, later, he walked her out. Neither of them was ready for the evening to be finished. At the door, she turned. The project, she said. I'll take it. I know, he said. She almost smiled. Good night, mijo. He watched her car until it turned the corner. Stood in the quiet street with the feeling of someone who has just confirmed something they already knew. They saw each other twice a week after that. Once for the project, site visits, design reviews, the professional architecture of two people building something real. Once for everything else, dinner, a gallery, evenings walking through parts of the city she was redesigning in her head as they moved through it, pointing out what she would keep and what she would change, and what the bones of a place told her about what it wanted to become. He listened to all of it. He asked questions that showed he had processed the last conversation before starting the current one. She found that it was rarer than it should have been. One Thursday, late in her office, site plans spread across her desk between them. He brought food from a place near the site, nothing expensive, just exactly right. And they ate standing at the plans and talked about load-bearing and sight lines, and what the building would feel like from the inside when it was complete. She looked up at some point and found him watching her. What? She said. You go somewhere else when you're working, he said. Completely. And then you come back with the answer already formed. Is that strange? No, he said. It's the best thing I've seen in a long time. She went back to the plans. Let it sit. Let it be what it was. Giselle didn't stop at the restaurant. She waited 2 weeks. Let the damage settle. Then she went further, because Giselle understood, better than most, that a single blow rarely finished anything. You had to be willing to go back. She called Mijo's father. And she lied. She told John Byung-go that Nadia had been seen consistently with another man. That the relationship with Mijo appeared, from what she had heard, to be a professional opportunity being managed as a personal one. She showed him a photo. It looked convincing. It wasn't. John Byung-go looked at it for a long time. Said very little. Thanked her for coming to him. That evening he called his son. The explanation that followed was clean. It made sense. But it didn't erase the doubt completely. And John Byung-go was not a man who ignored doubt once it existed. Giselle understood something most people didn't. Doubt didn't need to be proven. It just needed to be fed. She didn't go back immediately. She let it sit. Let the doubt breathe. Let it become something that didn't need her to hold it anymore. Then, 2 weeks later, she went back. This time, she didn't bring a photograph. She brought a pattern. Missed meetings. Schedule changes. Quiet adjustments inside Nadia's firm that looked, from the outside, like something being covered. Then she said it. Nadia was pregnant. Not Mijo's. This time John Byung-go didn't call his son. He called his wife. Mijo had listened to his father's first call without interrupting. His face had shown nothing. When it was done, he said he understood and thanked his father for saying something. He hung up. Sat in the dark of his office for a long time. He was not a man who made decisions in feeling. But he was a man, and there was one specific moment in the quiet of that office, where the information sat in him before he had processed it fully, and the gap it created felt like something he had not expected to feel. Nadia felt the difference the following morning. Not in anything he said. In the fraction of a degree of distance in his voice on the call, something she heard the way she heard everything, precisely, without showing that she'd heard it. She said nothing. Filed it. Sat with it through the day. That evening she called him back. Something's different, she said. No preamble. Nadia. Don't manage it, she said. Just tell me. He told her. All of it. His father's call. The photograph described to him. The moment he had felt before the thinking caught up with the feeling. He said it plainly, without managing her reaction, without softening what needed to be said straight. When he finished, the silence between them was long and full. A photograph, she said. Yes. Of me with Michael. Yes. From the Harlow project completion. 2 years ago. It's on our website. I know, he said quietly. You know. I know now. A pause. In the moment, there was a moment. Before I thought it through. I should have called you that night instead of sitting with it. I let a night pass where you didn't know something that concerned you. That was wrong. Nadia sat with this. Not with the lie. The lie was Giselle's, and she would deal with that separately. With him. With the moment he had described honestly when he could have said nothing and she would never have known. Who told your father, she said. They both already knew. She was at the John family home on a Sunday, 3 weeks after the photograph incident had been resolved, the stress between her and Miho repaired, the relationship solid again. His mother had been warm at the door. His father quieter than usual, but she had filed it as tiredness. She was looking for the bathroom when she heard it. A corridor. Two voices. The specific sound of a conversation not meant to be heard, low, urgent. The quality of words exchanged between two people who believed they were alone. His mother's voice first. Tight with something. You're sure she told you this? His father. That's what Giselle said. That the child isn't his. A long silence. Byungo. This woman has been nothing but. I know what she has appeared to be. I'm telling you what I was told. Nadia stood in the corridor. She stood there for a full 10 seconds. Completely still. The way she stood in her office when a project had gone wrong and she was taking the full measure of it before deciding how to respond. Not frozen, processing. Arranging what she had just heard into its actual shape. Then she walked back into the dining room. Sat down at the table. Picked up her glass. Miho looked at her from across the table. Read her face with the precision of a man who had learned her expressions and understood the difference between her ordinary composure and the composure that was doing heavy work. Nadia. After lunch, she said quietly. We need to talk. She told him in the car outside. Exactly what she had heard. Exactly where she had been standing. Exactly what had been said and in what order. He listened without moving. When she finished, his jaw set. Something colder than anger. She told my father you were pregnant, he said. With another man's child. That appears to be what she told him. Giselle. Yes. He sat with it for exactly 5 seconds. Then he took out his phone. He called his father first. Told him to come to the house that evening. His voice on the call was the particular quiet his father had heard perhaps 4 times in 36 years and had learned to take seriously. Then he called Giselle. My father's house, he said. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. She arrived thinking it was a conversation. She walked into a room with his father, his mother, and Nadia sitting at the table and understood immediately that it was not. Miho stood. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't move toward her. Tell my parents, he said, what you actually told my father. Both times. The photograph. The pregnancy. Say it in this room in front of everyone it concerned exactly as you said it. Giselle looked at the room. At his mother, whose expression was the controlled fury of a woman who had been lied to in her own family. At his father, who was looking at her with the expression of a man who had just understood the full extent of how he had been used. At Nadia, who was sitting with her hands folded on the table and her eyes on Giselle with the steady patience of someone who had already processed everything and was simply waiting for the rest of it to be finished. Miho. Say it. The silence in the room was total. Giselle said it. Not fully. She tried to frame it, tried to manage it, tried to present it as concern rather than calculation. But Miho stopped her every time she reached for a frame that wasn't the truth and asked her to say what she had actually said. By the end of it, the room had the complete picture. Every word. Every visit. Every lie dressed as love for the family. His mother stood up from the table. She looked at Giselle with the expression of 40 years of friendship being assessed against what she had just heard and found to be fraudulent. Get out of my house, she said. And understand that when you leave this room, you are leaving everything that came with knowing this family. Our name. Our doors. Our world. You are leaving it tonight and you are not coming back. Giselle looked at her. Looked at Miho. Something in her face tried to find the version of this she could survive the spin, the reframe, the story she could tell afterward that would leave her with something intact. Miho watched her look for it. Let her look. Then said the last thing he would ever say to her directly. There is no version of this you recover from. Not here. Not anywhere that matters. Go home and explain to your parents what you did tonight, because I will be calling your father in the morning. Giselle left. The room held the silence of what had just happened. Then Miho sat back down at the table, looked at his parents, then at Nadia. His father spoke first. The voice of a man who understood that he owed something and was not the kind of man who deferred what he owed. Nadia, he said, I owe you an apology. A direct one. I allowed myself to be used to doubt you, and I did not come to you first. That was wrong and I am sorry. Nadia looked at him. The steady assessment she brought to everything real. Then she nodded once, fully, the specific nod of someone who had received something genuine and was receiving it as such. Thank you, she said. His mother reached across the table and put her hand over Nadia's. Said nothing. Didn't need to. The following morning, Miho called Gisel's father. The conversation was 20 minutes. He said what needed to be said completely, not to destroy, but because Gisel's father deserved to know what his daughter had done, and the pretense of not knowing was not something Miho was willing to maintain. What happened in Gisel's family after that call was not his to manage. But he had made it impossible for her to manage it herself, to frame it herself, to survive it with her version of events intact. Every door his family's name had ever opened for hers closed within the month. Quietly. Permanently. Without announcement, because in his world things didn't end loudly. They simply ended. Gisel left the city 6 weeks later. There was nothing left in it for her. The legal notice arrived before she did. Nadia didn't announce it. Didn't discuss it. False statements. Documented damage. Professional and personal. It wasn't emotional. It was procedural. And it followed Gisel out of the city. The week after the family dinner was honest in the way weeks after difficult things were honest. Something between them was slightly different, not broken but stressed, the way good structures showed stress without failing. She felt it. He felt her feeling it. He came to her office on a Thursday. Unscheduled. Which said everything. He sat across from her desk and looked at her with the directness she had come to understand was simply who he was. The night my father first called, he said. I should have called you immediately. I sat with it instead. That night matters and I can't undo it. But I want you to know I understand what it cost, and I'm not asking you to pretend it didn't happen. She looked at him for a long moment, reading him the way she read everything for the structural truth beneath the surface. It cost something, she said. I want you to know that. I know. Not the lie. The moment. I know, he said again. You deserved better than that moment. I should have been better than it. The silence between them was different from the stressed silence of the past week. Cleaner. The silence of two people who had said the real things and were now sitting inside the truth of them without flinching. Thursday, she said finally. Yes. Don't be late. The first real thing close to a smile in a week crossed his face. I won't. His mother had requested the meeting. Not suggested, requested. Nadia arrived at the family home on a Sunday evening with the specific composure of a woman who had walked into boardrooms her entire career and understood that the preparation was always the same. Know the room. Be exactly yourself. Don't perform. His mother met her at the door and looked at her for 3 seconds. Then something in her face settled, the specific settlement of a woman who had made 1,000 assessments and recognized when one came back clean. Come in, she said. I've been wanting to meet you. Dinner was long and genuine. His mother asked about her work, specifically, intelligently, the questions of someone who had looked into what Nadia did before she arrived. His father asked 2 questions, both about the Eastern development, both precise enough that Nadia understood he had also done his research. She answered both fully. At the door, his mother held her hand briefly. My son is not easy, she said. He is worth it. But he is not easy. Neither am I, Nadia said. His mother looked at her, then laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her, the kind that came when someone said exactly the right true thing. In the car, Miho looked at her. She laughed. I noticed. She doesn't laugh like that with people she's performing for. I know, Nadia said. Neither do I. He asked her on a Tuesday. Her office. Late. The city dark outside the window, the site plans between them. He looked at her across the plans and said it the way he said everything that mattered, directly, without decoration. I want to be with you, he said. Properly. Officially. If you want that. Nadia looked at him. She already knew. Yes, she said. Simply. The way she said things when she already knew. The Eastern development took 14 months to complete. The opening was a private event, the building lit for the first time, Nadia's name on the commission beside his on the development. She stood inside the atrium she had designed and looked up at what it had become. The light moving through the space the way she had said it would. The materials doing what she had specified. The building breathing, existing in the city rather than imposing on it. He appeared beside her. She felt him before she saw him. It's exactly what you said it would be, he said. It usually is, she said. He looked at the building, then at her. Then he went down on one knee in the atrium they had built together, in the light she had designed, in the space that existed because of both of them. You build things that last, he said. I want to be one of them. Permanently. If you'll have me. The atrium was quiet around them. The city moved beyond the glass. Nadia looked at this man, who had walked into a restaurant and ended 30 years of history without hesitation because of what had been done to her in his space. Who had told her the truth about the moment of doubt because he had never known how to be anything other than honest. Who had sat with her at site plans and brought food and listened and never once asked her to be anything other than exactly what she was. Yes, she said. The word filled the atrium the way light filled it completely, from every angle, leaving nothing in shadow. He stood, slid the ring on her finger, looked at her in the building they had made together. Like she was the fixed point. Like everything else was structure built around her. Did you see that coming from the moment she sat down at that table and picked up that menu? Tell me in the comments. And if Nadia and Miho's story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications. There is always more coming. Always.